While the new year is often seen as a time for new beginnings, it can also bring endings, with some law firms citing January as divorce month. We're joined now by psychologist Luke Suelzle to talk about navigating those tough times through your marriage. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, Luke, what is the best way to navigate turbulence in your marriage and relationship?
Well, that's a good question. None of us want to be in a high conflict relationship, of course, but an important thing to remember is that just because there's fighting doesn't necessarily mean that we're incompatible. Usually it's a sign of unmet attachment needs going on. Usually what I see is what I call a pursuer and a withdrawer dynamic, where one partner wants to connect, the other partner needs more space or alone time. So figuring out which role you have and what your needs are in that, and your partner's needs, can help make sure we can give appropriate respect to that to slow down the fighting.
What are signs that your marriage is heading towards divorce?
Well, that's a good one. Usually it's not one big event like we tend to see in movies or things like that. It tends to be a series of little micro decisions, distancing that's going on, emotional isolation, loneliness within the relationship, are all indicators that we might need to get some help.
And what advice do you have for people who feel like they're heading down that direction, but they do not want a divorce?
For that one, my biggest suggestion would be talk to somebody, get some help. But one of the biggest barriers is we don't want to admit that there's a problem. Sometimes saying it out loud can make it feel more real than we're ready for. But you're not alone. There's statistics we have, up to half of all relationships end in divorce. But if we can get in there a little bit sooner and start addressing the underlying needs, then that gives us more power to prevent that.
Is couples counseling worthwhile, even if a couple is actually going through the process of divorce?
I would say absolutely. Whether or not the relationship is going to continue the way that it is, there's still going to be some kind of relationship that exists. We still need to be able to communicate, be on the same page, especially if there's kids involved. You're always going to be a part of each other's lives in some capacity. So learning how to talk through issues is still going to be important.
Now, married couples share quite a bit: children, possessions, friend groups. What advice do you have when it comes to, figuring that part out?
For that part, what I suggest is try to broaden the perspective and slow the conversation. Broadening the perspective, looking at what do you want your relationship with your ex to be like in a year, in 5 years? What does that look like for you, if we can get that? What do you want your relationship to be like with your kids, or your relationship between your kids and your ex? What's your role in supporting that? There's going to be a lot of intense and sometimes overwhelming emotions going on. But if we can look at the bigger picture, then we can adjust our behavior so it's behavior that we're proud of eventually.
How do you talk to your kids about the situation?
For kids, often what they need to know is what's staying the same. Stabilizing, making sure that we reinforce that they're loved, that they're connected, that they have home, and making sure that they know that whatever's going on isn't their fault. Kids have a tendency to internalize these kinds of things. So reinforce, you're still loved, you're still safe by both parents, and this is something that we're working through while maintaining that love and safety.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and, talking about what can be a difficult conversation. For more information on this topic, you can go to Luke's website, lovingchoicespsychology.ca.